Hey, I got something really cool to show you. Come on in. It's the network TV booth. How cool is this? Boom! Special Friday edition of Breaking the Huddle here at Ohio State. I'm Joel Klatt. This show is sponsored by Dr. Pepper at every home gate and tailgate. It is the one that fans crave. We know you love access. We know you love behind the scenes type of stuff, so that's what we're giving you here on this Friday after Thanksgiving. It is our booth where Gus and I make it happen. And Jenny's obviously on the field. Gus and I are up here. So let's go through it, all right? Let's start with on this side, on the far left side of the booth, looking down over the field. This is where our stat man, Jeff Chapman, he's camped out over here, and he does an awesome job. Research, stats, everything, and he's going to be right next to Gus. He's got his headset on, and then here's our man, the myth, the legend, Gus Johnson. He's got his sound box, he's got his mic box, he's got his program monitor. So whatever you're seeing at home is going to be on this monitor for him right there. So a lot of times Gus is going to be looking at this monitor to see what camera angle is being shot, all those different things, so he can refer to what you're seeing at home. Scotty, our man, the greatest spotter in college football, stands right next to Gus. And then on the other side, here's my office on Saturdays, folks, and I love it. I think I've got the best office in the world. Let's start with just a quick dissertation of what's going on, because you're probably like, why in the world are there 1,000 monitors? Well, here's why. I need a program monitor just like Gus. So I've got the program. Whatever you're seeing at home is going to be on this monitor right here. This monitor is an ISO monitor, so this is where the production truck, can show me specialty graphics. Maybe they can roll back and show me a clip of a previous series or any packages they're going to build with replay sequences, and they can show me in that monitor during commercial breaks, and it helps the cohesiveness of the broadcast. This right here is a really cool deal here. This is from DV Sport, and it's a replay system. And the DV Sport replay system is a clicker-based film system where I've got the Skycam, the one that floats over the field. I've got that feed in this monitor at all times. And what I do is I can rewind it, I can pause it, I can slow it down, I can toggle to a different camera angle, or I can take it back to whatever is live on that camera right then. And what that does is it helps me see things that you just couldn't see otherwise. So it's basically like having rewind every single play. It's totally a cheat. It's one of the reasons why I can always see penalties and where linemen are pulling from, where the blitz is pulling from, all those different things. That happens on this monitor. So what ends up happening is, as I'm watching the game and I'm watching the play develop from up here with my eyes on the field, what I'll generally do is, about at the end of the play, when Gus is wrapping up his call and who's tackling, I've got the rewind going, and I'm looking at the beginning of the play and seeing who made the play work from a blocking standpoint, what the quarterback was looking at, and then that can help in the analysis of what's going on and what I'm telling you at home during the course of the game. Then we get over to here, and I'm going to start up here first. This is a huge monitor that just has what we call it is like a quad monitor. So I've got 4 different inputs going on up here. Down on the bottom right, this is called the Viz 2. Viz 2 means that any graphics that are being built by the graphics department here on site can show up here. So during commercial breaks or even during the course of action, they'll say, hey, check out your Viz 2. We've got a graphic built, so that once the graphic comes into the program and it's actually input into the program on the program monitor, I know what it is. I have a reference to what numbers are coming up, and I can reference the graphic that is being put on the air. This bottom left is called net return. Net return means this is the feed that's actually going up to the satellite, then coming back down, and it's actually what you're seeing at home. So that's on about a 5-6 second delay. This is important because anytime we go back to LA for a game break and we're bringing you action from around the country, it's not going to show up on any of these monitors because these are all in-house monitors. So the only way I get the game break and see, what Notre Dame is doing or Alabama is doing or whomever is playing at the same time is by watching this, but it's on a 6-second delay, 5-6 second delay, and I get the audio of Greg Wolf or Mike Hill giving us the game break, and I can watch what's going on in that action. Here's the stats for the game. So I'll have one team on the top, the other team on the bottom. It'll have all the rushing, passing, receiving statistics, and then team statistics right here, and I can have a running tally of, I know exactly what they're doing as far as rushing yardage, passing yardage, so on and so forth. Then comes the really cool part, the top right. This top right, I tell the truck, whatever is the best game in college football at the time of our game goes right there. Why? Because I love the sport and I've got to watch what's going on. So right now on a Friday, you've got David Beatty and this Kansas team trailing Texas 21-7. So during the course of the game or any game really, I'll be just keeping my eye on college football and seeing what's going on around there. Now let's get to, before I want to tell you about the real prize of the booth, I'm going to just take you really quick through the process of what happens on game day during the game. First of all, this is the mic. Here's the headset. Obviously, you got the headset and audio and everything. The most important part of that mic, though, is the audio box. Now, this audio box, I've got the volume right here in terms of what my producer is saying and then what the program audio is doing, but then the buttons are where it's at. If I need to cough, shout, do whatever I want to do without you hearing it at home, I hold down that red button. That means that that mic is totally dead as long as I'm holding down this button. As soon as I lift my finger off, that mic is back and live and it's going to the country. Now, this white button is very important because this is my ability to talk to the production truck downstairs. So if I hold this white button down, then you at home don't hear what I'm saying, but my producer and anybody on the line feed in the production truck can. So that's the director, it's the graphics department, it's any of those things. And as soon as I lift my finger, now I'm back live to the country. So here's how it would go. A play is starting to develop. Gus has given his big call. It's such an exciting call. While the play is happening, I'm going to hit the talkback and tell the producer what I'd like to talk about as a replay. So I might tell him a camera, I might tell him a player, it might be a specific block, and then he's going to find the best footage of what I'm trying to talk about, and then I'm going to say something like guard pulling left. And I lift my, and now he's going to say, okay, which camera angle is the best camera angle to show the guard pulling left? Because Joel wants to talk about something with the guard pulling left. And so he'll find it and he'll say, okay, here it comes on the pit cam. All right, and I know it's the pit camera coming on the replay. And then as soon as Gus gets done with his call, now the replay pops up. And that's where we get to the coolest tool in here, and that is the telestrator. We have one of the best telestrators in the entire business. And the reason that this is one of the best telestrators in the business is because of all the different styles of tool that we can lay down on the broadcast. Let me just start with the one that I think is the coolest innovation in telestration. We've all seen those pre-made highlights where they have the track on the field that the player is running on the arrow and the track looks like it's painted on the field. Well, we can do that live, and I'm sure you've seen it if you've watched our games with these arrows in the top right and top left. What I like to do is use color-specific arrows so that you at home view the game as beautifully as you should on your expensive, large, wonderful televisions. I don't want to just draw a big yellow line on your television screen. So what I try to do is I try to paint on the field with an arrow that is actually sitting on the green grass, or in this case, the turf. You can tell that it's painted because those white lines, they actually cut through the arrow. This is a better way to put it. See how it's behind the O of the Ohio State? Now, if this camera were to move, those lines would stay right there on the field as if they were painted right on the field. So when I'm drawing, I can say, hey, here comes the running back and he's running around like that. I don't want a yellow line. What do I want to do? J.K. Dobbins, here he comes, and now I can leave it, and the replay sequence will roll, and the players are running, and it looks like they're running on that line. It's a really cool attribute, and I can do it for both teams. So here I've got the blue for the Michigan. I've obviously got the red for the Ohio State. Now, if I want something that is not going to be painted on the field, I'll use an arrow that looks exactly the same, but as you can see, it goes over the paint lines. That's actually going to be on the screen. So if the camera moves, it's going to move with the camera as if it's painted on your TV at home. So it's a little bit different, and you got to play accordingly. I've got a ring to locate players. They're also color specific, so I can throw those down onto the field to say, hey, I want to draw your eyes to this player or that player. I've also got locators that are team specific that fall under the player's feet like that on the field, and I do it team specific. I've got the blocking line for each team, so I've got the offensive linemen coming around for each team, and you got to understand, like, if I've got that guard pulling, that's what I'll say. So here comes the guard for Ohio State, and he's coming, he's pulling around the edge, and that's the line that I'm going to use, and then I'm going to tap that X to make it go away, and my director is going to roll the rest of the replay. Some other cool things about this telestrator is that I've got player identifications on here. So I can throw Chase Young on there. If I'm talking about Chase Young before the play, I can throw his identifier out there, and before the snap, I'm just going to quickly take it out. I can do the same with a guy like Draymond Jones. I've got, obviously, Tate Martell. If he comes in this ball game as a quarterback, I want to draw everyone's attention to that. So I'm going to throw the identifier up so that you at home are not jarred by seeing a new quarterback. I've got all sorts of different players on this side, like Rashawn Gary. You've obviously got Zach Gentry, the tight end. And then here's another one I think you're going to like, Ben Mason. Hey, guess what? The fullback's lined up at tailback. How do you know? Because I'm going to throw his name up there. Very cool on that standpoint. Last tool I'm going to talk about, that's the vision cone. So I can say the quarterback's eyes are going one direction or the other. So here's the process. Last thing, watching the play. Here's what's going on. Maybe it's a big pass completion right down the middle of the field, but the safety got out of position. So here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to hit the talk back, and I'm going to say, Sky Cam. Give me the replay in the Sky Cam. I'm just going to say Sky Cam. I take my finger off. I wait for Gush to finish his call. Now I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to say, hey, what an amazing route by KJ Hill. Watch as KJ Hill, he gets right down the seam of the coverage, and then he's going to beat the safety. This Michigan safety, Josh Metellus, he's got to get off the hash, but he's unable to do so. That's the point. They're successful down the hash, blah, 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 and I finish the replay. But that's how it happens. You hit the talk back, you get the replay, maybe you draw, you hit the X to clear it out, and then that's the replay sequence. You better be tight, you better be quick, and it better make sense, or else you're going to hear about it on Twitter. Ha! How about that? So there's the behind-the-scenes look here at our booth for Fox Sports, where Gus and I call all the action, and it's going to be a great game tomorrow. I got to tell you, I cannot wait for this ball game. The game at the shoe between Michigan and the Ohio State University. Ohio State is playing with house money right now. I have never seen them this relaxed on a Friday before a big game, in part because they're not supposed to win. They're the underdog for the first time in forever, and they're relaxed accordingly. I feel like this team is going to play their best game tomorrow, and if they do, Michigan's going to have to play their best game in order to win. I love what Michigan has done this season. The revenge tour is real. This team is very close-knit. They've got very clear goals and a very defined vision, and they're following that vision of Jim Harbaugh, their head coach, exquisitely. Their run game on the offense gives them a chance to hold the ball, hold the time of possession, keep the defense fresh on the other side, and that defense, in turn, dominates. They're the number one defense in college football for a reason, in part because they're not on the field a whole lot, and then the other part is that they're fast, they're aggressive, they tackle well, and Don Brown, the defensive coordinator, does an exceptional job with them. Ultimately, the key for Michigan is Shea Patterson. We've seen in the last few years that this team has been good and good enough to probably beat Ohio State. In fact, had the lead in several of these games over the last couple of years. But what happens? The quarterbacks make mistakes. That's one thing that Shea Patterson has avoided this season is mistakes. He's the biggest difference. If Michigan wins, I believe it's going to be because Shea Patterson plays really well. We'll see if he's able to do that. On the other side of the ball, I cannot wait for the matchup of one of the best passing teams in America with Dwayne Haskins and the Buckeyes going up against the number one pass defense in all of college football. This is an analyst's dream to see this strength against strength and which team comes out on top. I do think it's going to be a fantastic game. I can't wait for it to be a fantastic game late to see some of these players have to play under the pressure of legendary status on the line. Remember, this is not just a game to win a division. This is not just a game to potentially win a Big Ten championship or go to the playoff or compete for a national championship. The results of this game and the performances of this game live on forever. This is where you become a legend for one of these schools. This is a game that will be remembered forever. And we thought, what better way to talk about this game than get with one of those legends? And so, Beanie Wells is going to join us in just a moment, one of the legends for Ohio State. He's 3-0 against the team up north, as they like to call it here in Columbus. Beanie played in that 06 game. We'll ask him about that. So, I'm going to make my way down to the field level, and we're going to hook up with Beanie Wells. And I got to tell you, I'm very excited to check that out. But before we get out of the booth, the last thing I wanted to show you, the bright lights of network television for a game like this. I'm sitting where Gus and I are going to sit when we come on for America and we give you the open of the show. And I just want you to take a look at what we look at as far as the lights here in the booth. These lights are great, but the most important one is that red light, because that means that it's on and it's about to go down. Speaking of going all the way down to the field level, let's get down there. Beanie Wells right now. Let's go. As promised, here with the Buckeye legend, Beanie Wells. And Beanie, first and foremost, the introduction this week for you has to start with, you were 3-0 against the team up north.
No question about it, man. This is an amazing rivalry, amazing week. I look forward to it every year.
Now, you're from Ohio, and when you grew up, what was it like? Let's start there. When you grew up, what was it like being a kid, being a football fan in this state for this week? You know, it's Thanksgiving, you get around the family. What's it like watching this game as a kid?
You know what? My most fond memories were, this week growing up, getting an opportunity to watch the game and to one day hoping that I would have a chance to be a part of the game. But, the memories growing up weren't the most greatest because obviously in the mid-'90s, we didn't fare well versus Michigan often. So I had some tough childhood memories of watching this game.
What he's referring to is there were several times, I believe it was three, definitely a couple of times in the 90s where Ohio State was in line to go to the Rose Bowl and then lost to an underdog Michigan team. One of them was Tim Biakabatuka's team. Biakabatuka runs for 313 yards and knocks Ohio State out of the Rose Bowl game. I know that was a tough pill to swallow for a lot of Buckeye fans. But then it started to change, and in large part due to guys like Beanie Wells. So you dream about playing in this game your entire life. Beanie Wells' first time to play in the game, 1 versus 2, 2006, in the shoe, in what can be described only as the game of the century, the first and real game of the century.
No question about it. I mean, I remember, waking up that morning, rooming with Troy Smith, who was the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback that year, and all he kept harping to me was, you got to be fine-tuned in this game. You make a big play in this game, you etch yourself in the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry forever, and I was able to do that. I had a big play early in that game, a 52-yard touchdown. And it was just exhilarating. Obviously, seeing some of the people that were here, I walk out, run out to the sideline. The first person I see hanging out on Michigan sideline is Derek Jeter. So I'm in awe because I have never seen celebrities of that magnitude at a football game before.
What do you remember outside of that play? I mean, you get your feet wet. I believe it was early. You took off on that run, that 50-yard run. It's in your home stadium. What else do you remember? Do you remember anything from the second half, and trying to hold on because it got tight? You were up 14, I believe, in the second quarter, and then all of a sudden late, they start to come back, and it becomes a great game late. What do you remember from that time?
I remember being a shootout, and I remember, guys on the sideline trying to stay fine-tuned in the game mentally because obviously Michigan was creating some amazing drives. I remember Mike Hart had capped off, I want to say, a 56-yard pickup on a drive, and obviously, we get down because that's deflating to a defense. But I remember Troy Smith rallying the troops, and everybody rallied around Troy and said, just hold on, guys, I got us. What does he do? Go out and hit Brian Robisky for a 50-yard touchdown on the edge there. It was insane.
What was it like playing with a Heisman winner? I mean, was it leadership and play, all of the above, in particular in a game like that?
Oh, no question about it. You knew one thing about Troy. No matter what day it was, if it was a game to be played, he was going to show up. And that's the way he carried himself on and off the field. He was a battler, a guy that you could certainly rally around, and a tremendous leader.
So you were in that genre of player that started this run. 13 of the last 14 years, Ohio State has won the game. The only time that Michigan has won the game in that stretch was when Ohio State had some turmoil. They were 6-6. Jim Tressel had just left. Luke Fickell was the interim coach right before Urban Meyer gets here. How much pride do you take, not only in the 3-0 record, but being kind of the jumping off point to what has become now the most dominant decade and plus for Ohio State in this rivalry's history?
It's huge for me to have those bragging rights. Not, like you said, not only with the 3-0, but the fact that Ohio State has been able to create that dominance and sustain it. It's a hard thing to do. Michigan's a great program. They go out and get some great talent, but I love being able to rub it in some of my Michigan friends' faces.
Who's your buddies?
Lamar Woodley and Steve Brescian are two of my really good friends, and I talk to Woodley all the time, and he's got a lot of bets he hasn't paid up on, dinner bets and jersey bets. So I'm certainly hoping this is another one of those bets that I can get him to not pay up on.
Come on, Lamar, let's go pay up on those debts, right? Here we go. Okay, this version version of the game. And even though we've had that decade plus of dominance for the Buckeyes, now all of a sudden, for the first time in 51 games or something, Ohio State the underdog to Michigan, who's coming in with a very good team, a bit more veteran than Ohio State. How do you see this matchup playing out?
It's going to be a great matchup. Obviously, we have some chinks in the armor. On the defensive end, it's been a hole of ours the entire season. And the way Michigan has kind of found their groove on the offensive end, being able to run that offense, that pro-style offense. And Karan Higgins has been phenomenal all year long. It's scary. We gave up 300 yards rushing last week to a freshman running back. And when you got a veteran guy coming in here, you're definitely concerned.
Okay, so the run game is where it's near and dear to your heart. And for Ohio State, late in the season, those backs have gotten going finally. And if you don't know, during the month of October, Ohio State was not a great rushing team. They just weren't. They were averaging under 3 yards per carry game after game after game, and it was Haskins through the air. Then a few weeks ago, all of a sudden, this running game turned around. They got 100 yards in the second half against Michigan State. Last week, J.K. Dobbins goes for over 200 yards on 37 carries, which is a monster. So when you look at Mike Weber, J.K. Dobbins, and the Buckeye run game, what stands out to you?
I think it's the mentality. I think we're now seeing an offensive line go out, get a hat on the hat. I think they limited the RPO options. And when you're an offensive lineman, you block a little bit differently when you know it's going to be a run versus a pass. And I think right now they're going out with a chip on their shoulder with something to prove. And the running backs, obviously, we've seen those guys in weeks past, turn it on in years past. We have 2,000-yard rushers, so we know they have the talent. It's all a matter of the mentality that the offensive line's at.
All right, so it's prediction time now. I know who you're going to pick, but what do you think is, one, the biggest key in the game, and two, what is your prediction for the game here in the shoe tomorrow noon on Fox?
I think the biggest key for the game is limiting big plays for Ohio State on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, Michigan's a team that can't hit home runs. Yep. You got to bottle those things up, and I fully expect Ohio State to pull this game out. I certainly think it's going to be behind the legs of J.K. Dobbins and Mike Weber.
And by the way, watch out for Haskins running the ball as well. He had over 50 yards last week against Maryland, which was huge in that overtime win, 52-51 over the Terps. Beanie Wells, 3-0, Buckeye legend. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate your time. And I got to tell you, man, this has been a fun week so far. I hope you've had a safe and enjoyable Thanksgiving. And now all you got to do is sit tight and get ready for the game. It's Michigan. It's the Ohio State University. Noon on Fox. Gus, Jenny, and myself will have the call. Thank you to Dr. Pepper for sponsoring this special Friday edition of Breaking the Huddle. At every home gate and tailgate, it is the one that fans crave. Enjoy the game, everybody.